we are continuing to look at retro decks with Spinner built on order. Taking a quick look at Spinner, he's a 6 hand size 28 health character with 2 enhanced abilities. The first one, we can either give war weapon attacks +1 speed or +1 damage for the rest of the combat phase. This lets us progressively make war attacks faster or hit harder, or even some combination of them both. The other enhance, once per turn, allows us to build a foundation from our hand. We can use this in both our own turn and our rival's turn, but just bear in mind the speed is applied to this attack, so you can end up in a situation where you're boosting your rival's speed. So having a quick look over his breakdown, we're playing 7 assets, 20 attacks, all of which are weapons, and 43 foundations, a couple of which also have the weapon keyword. The sideboard's evenly split with 5 actions and 5 foundations. Kicking off with assets, we have 3 copies of a Mega Sword and Elk Shield. This 1 difficulty 6 check asset allows us to block with it while it's in play. Not only that, but the blocked attack only deals 1 damage, which means when partially blocking, or even blocking something like a throw, the most damage you'll take is 1. So while not a true Omni block, it definitely functions like it, because let's face it, 1 damage isn't that bad unless you're trying to deny your opponent the momentum. The E twice per turn can be quite useful if you're trying to force damage through on your own turn, or if you're trying to get your rival to commit out more on their turn. If we manage to get some momentum, Scarlet Thunder is an asset that definitely requires an answer from your rival. It is quite easy to run away with the game if you've managed to pick up 1 or 2 attacks in a given turn. Especially given the added bonus each time we play an attack, Spinner is going to benefit the rest of the attacks for that turn. Having a free stun 1 on every attack we play means that we're likely to be able to choose damage over speed on Spinner's enhance more often. Being playable while committed is a nice bonus, but we have no way to commit it ourselves, so I don't really see it coming up in many games. There is likely a strong argument for Hyena to be a 3 of in this deck, if not a 4 of. On each unblocked attack that deals damage, we either increase our rival's difficulty by 1, or increase their block modifiers by 1 for the rest of the turn. This is akin to using a response on convenient timing, or even clogging your rival's card pool. Not only that, but it's not impossible for us to use this response more than once in a given turn. All we need to do is play a weapon card, which means even blocking with a weapon card will ready this asset. Similar to Key-In, increasing your rival's block modifier will make it easier for you to choose damage over speed. As the only combo attack in the deck, we'll be hoping to play Blood Moon Rending either as our 3rd or 4th card for the turn. Obviously, seeing your rival's hand and being able to remove a card of your choice is a pretty strong ability, especially since it gets around a lot of discard tech, since we're not actually discarding a card from their hand. We don't need to use the combo enhance to make Blood Moon a strong attack. Spinner could increase the speed by 3 thanks to both of his enhances, and thanks to how simple it is to trigger the bottom enhance of Blood Moon, it's not unlikely we can just throw this attack 6 mid for 7 damage. Similar to Key-In, Stakeout is here to help us commit out our rival's foundations, so that we can choose to call damage over speed. Don't get me wrong, giving Stakeout +1 speed and making it a 5 high for 5 with stun 2 is a pretty good rate for a 4 difficulty attack. Obviously Stakeout really starts to shine depending on the matchup, and if we had the momentum to spend to pump the stun rating. In hindsight, I should have probably grouped Nouveau Soleil and Raptor Rush together, and use this as a chance to explain the reversal keyword, but we'll go over it here for the players that aren't familiar with it. Basically, reversal is a counter attack. After you block your rival's attack, as long as their attack didn't have the safe keyword, you can then play this attack in your opponent's turn as a response. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it's response hand, then you would put it in the card pool, make a check as part of the cost, and at that point your rival would then cancel. Been a while since I've had to look up reversal since it doesn't appear in my hero. So Nouveau Soleil and Raptor Rush allow us to play with Spinner's enhance every time your rival attacks you. Whether you have a copy of one of these attacks in hand or not, you should always give your attack a speed or damage bonus using the top enhance. Keep track of this number as it goes, maybe use dice or write it down on a bit of paper, tally mark it or something, because eventually if you do decide to reverse them in their turn, those stats will be applied to your reversal. So enough about reversals, let's actually take a look at Nouveau Soleil. It is a 4 difficulty, 3 high for 5 damage attack. So the top enhance only does something if it was played as a reversal, which will allow you to ready 2 foundations that haven't readied yet, which is pretty good. But we're really running 4 of these for the bottom enhance. If it's not completely blocked, you get to commit your opponent's character. This will be useful for turning off defensive characters in your own turn, but if playing against decks that really rely on their character to make the deck function, this is a great answer. You'll be happy to have 4 in the main board. Continuing on with attacks that have keywords that don't appear in my hero, we've got Mop Strike. It's a desperation 3 weapon attack that's 4 difficulty, 4 high for 4 damage. So desperation means you need to be below your starting health total. So in the case of Spinner, it just means we need to be at 14 health. And what this will do is it actually changes the difficulty of the attack to being a 3 instead of a 4. Going on to the enhances, we can discard a card to force our opponent to discard 1 at random, and then we both draw a card. If you get lucky, you could disrupt your opponent a bit here. Maybe they'll try to sculpt an attack turn and you've just stripped one of their cards out of their hand, or maybe you've made them discard a relevant block. Either way, it doesn't really matter, since we'll be using this top enhance to fuel the bottom enhance. If your opponent's discarded a card this turn, we get to draw a card. Not only is it a 4 high for 4 attack that can get cheaper, but it basically says draw 2 cards. The only thing you need to be a little bit mindful of is anti-discard tech, but since the card's been discarded at random, if it's something coming from hand, you might get lucky and just not hit it. Man, the My Hero players will be learning all the new keywords here, since Forbidden Moonset has Safe. Safe is a simple one, it just means your rival can't play a reversal after blocking this attack. But that's definitely not the reason why we're playing Moonset. A 5 difficulty 3 high for 6 that it can enhance to lose its safe keyword and gain powerful 5. So we have some board control here that allows us to debuild annoying foundations. If we have 6 or fewer foundations, we get to add a card from our hand to our momentum. So you might be feeling like Moonset's a bit nuts, and you'd be right, like this card's disgusting. Given it the same treatment as Blood Moon, just looking at this card and Spinner, we can throw this as a 6 high 11 damage attack with next to no costs. Just try and sequence it in the right order. You don't want to Spinner, put an extra foundation into play and then realise you can't actually gain the momentum anymore. On to our last attack, and it's another reversal. Raptor Rush is a 5 difficulty, 4 high for 6 damage attack with a +2 mid block. Now the reason I've pointed out the mid block here is this attack actually does something a little bit special. When you block with it, you then get to play it as a reversal after the blocked attack resolved. Normally with reversals you have to block with another card first, then play the reversal. Raptor Rush is just saving you an extra card. Not only this, if this attack is not blocked, you get to change the zone of the next attack to any other that you wish, and reduce the speed of your opponent's next attack to 0. Even though Raptor Rush and Nouveau Soleil have the reversal keyword, don't be afraid to play them in your own turn. They are still weapon attacks and Spinner is still going to give them bonuses. Knowing when to hold back your reversals for your rival's turn will make you a winner in no time. So similar to last time, we've broken the foundations into 3 parts. We have our spam, the cards that we'll play multiple copies of, and then our one-offs. So the first spam foundation we're having a look at here is Voice of Reason. It's a 0 difficulty 5 check, and it has a once per turn enhance that both players discard a card and draw a card. Now it's worth noting the cost here is the enhance once per turn, so even if you have no cards in hand, you can still use this to draw a card. Just be mindful that you are allowing your rival to do a bit of card filtering, or if they have 0 cards in hand, you're going to be giving them a card. Up next is Hack and Slash. The block modifier on this card isn't great, but it kinda makes up for it for having Breaker 1. Plus its response giving +2 damage when it's built during the enhance step is just a nice little bonus. While we can't use the speed hit that Ageless and Wise provides, it will protect our staging area against most interaction from our rival. Never a day without training is back since we're running a good number of assets. E-flip, discard a card, draw a card is fine, but E-flip, draw a card is much better. Since we're a little bit low on speed hit, we're running 3 copies of Ice Gliding. Given -2 speed is okay for a spam, but the fact that it modifies the next attack speed as well is pretty handy. It's worth noting if we block, then reverse will be given our attack a +1 speed, so it won't get applied to your rival's next attack. Due to House of Cards being unique, I've decided only to include one copy of it. Always remember you can enhance with Spinner even if you don't have a reversal in hand, just to fire the response on House of Cards. Don't underestimate how good a deterrent is for playing blocks if your rival knows they're going to check bad, so using the form to put an attack on top of their deck can help you get in some easy hits. On to our last spam, and it's kinda like a baby passing the torch. Enhance commit, if we've no cards in hand, we draw 1. The main reason we're running 2 copies of this is just to add some additional weapon keyworded cards to our deck, not to mention this has upside if you block a weapon attack with it. For our non-spam foundations, we're starting off with 3 copies of Stolen Sword. It's a 2/5 with a +3 mid block, that after you play it your rival commits 1 foundation. Since it triggers on after you play this card, it works if you block with it. The E, reveal 1 weapon card from our hand. The next time we play a weapon foundation this turn, we get to add it to our staging area. Allows us to get round Breaker. Though it is worth noting that since it's the next time we play a weapon foundation, not the next time we play a weapon foundation card, this enhance doesn't work on defense. Talking about weapon foundations, we've got 3 copies of Blade Expertise in the deck as well. You can destroy this to build 1 weapon foundation from your hand, but since it's playable while committed, there's not much reason to use this ability while it's ready. Alternatively, the Spinner response can give our weapon card Breaker 1, EX2 or Stun 1, and we've already seen that we have a large quantity of weapon cards in the deck. I just don't recommend giving your foundations any abilities that aren't Breaker. To help protect our board a little bit, we've got 2 copies of Conduit of United Essence. Thanks to the order response, we can punish our opponent for committing or flipping any of our cards. I'm sure I mentioned it in the last video, but it's worth noting that if your opponent stuns 1, you can choose to stun the Conduit of United Essence and then use the response, since it's playable while committed. The bottom enhance won't be beneficial in every matchup, but there may be occasions where it's worthwhile. Since we're playing little passing the torch, we may as well play the big passing the torch as well. Can't go wrong with enhance commit, draw a card, or ideally drawing 2 cards. Since we're not on symbols for High Seas or Cheerleader, we're running the third alternative to give Flash, Search for Salvation. Now this one does come with a bit of a drawback where it needs to be your opponent's attack, also the attack gains unblockable. So don't use it on anything that you can't just take the hit from. The enhanced flip isn't amazing, but if it's your game winning turn, E flip that stuns 1 and may clog your rival's card pool is pretty good. So we've got 2 copies of Heroic Lineage here, mostly just to help shore up the speed rate in the deck, but in a pinch we can use it to give +2 damage. Lastly, we have 2 copies of God of Thunder. This card's like the bigger, angrier brother of requesting assistance. Instead of flipping and requiring the momentum, we just destroy 1 foundation to ready 1 foundation that hasn't been readied yet. Also, this ability is playable while committed. Similar to Heroic Lineage, if we're struggling for damage, we can always commit God of Thunder for +2. Moving on to our one-offs, and this time there's 10 of them. The Citywide Crisis and For Mother Russia are functionally the same card, the main differences being Citywide Crisis has the weapon trait, also the response is only in your own turn, and both the costs of the enhances are different. What's better than 1 strong unique foundation? Having a second copy of it that totally ignores the unique rule. You'll mostly be using these foundations to punish your rival for drawing additional cards, but in a pinch you can also use them as speed hit. So I know so far I've been relating older cards to be like versions of the My Hero cards. I think it's just a way to help explain things, but refusing to let go really is just a repeatable "you're so obvious." Sure, we can only use it once per turn, normally, due to the enhanced commit, but when you've got something like God of Thunder, you're now getting to negate 2 attacks a turn basically. Moving on to more defense, we have Last of His Kind. For the low cost of losing 2 health, we can give an attack -4 damage. Now, this exchange might not seem great, but it's basically a free enhance that says give an attack -2 damage. If we find ourselves at 14 or less, we can give all of our attacks going forward +2 damage. Not to mention, if our rival goes out of deadlock, that's a further 2 damage. I know it says we want to be using spinners and hands on each of the rival's attacks so we can build up stats either to use on our reversal later, or even just to threaten that we have a reversal, but as a panic button, you can use Resurrected Revenant to seal Spinel, so that you can pick up any foundation from your discard pile. This serves two functions. The most common one is we can pick up a block zone that we need to block a rival's attack, or we can pick up some of our tech pieces that we might need for that matchup. This deck is also running Curious Magnetism because switching your rival's speed and damage can completely nullify certain attacks. We also have a Hacker Extraordinaire for some additional asset answers, and a way to generate momentum without actually hitting your opponent. Continuing on with the cards that are making another appearance, we've got Bebop Blues back again. It gives us a way to play around actions, and it's a good deterrent for your rival using the same ability multiple times. Finishing off with Speed Hate, we have a copy of Sticky Balls. If we're going for the game winning turn, you flip, clog your rival's card pool, effectively giving all your attacks +1 speed that turn. And lastly, for the main deck, we have Daughter of the Bladed Rod. The top enhance is good, but mostly we don't really have any game winning deadlock abilities, so this helps us punish our rival if they decide to go there. Moving on to our sideboard, we've got 5 different cards here. 3 copies of Prepare to Fight, 2 Stop, 2 Invincible Iron Body, 2 Edge of Death and 1 Ageless and Wise. Since we already covered Ageless and Wise and the fact that it's there to protect our staging area, I'll just focus on the other 4 cards in this segment. So Prepare to Fight's an action, +1 mid block with Breaker 1 and 3 abilities. The first one, after we block an attack that has the multiple keyword, we discard all of the multiple copies. The second one says after we partially block an attack, the attack deals 0 damage. It means if we block a mid throw with this, we are still going to take half. And lastly, we can remove it to force both players to add 1 card from their staging area to their card pool. We're not really going to be caring about this bottom E much, but if you find yourself against a low hand size character, there may be a world where the 3 Prepare to Fight and the 4 of Moonset just manage to keep your opponent out of the game. It's mostly here for you to bring in against decks that are playing multiples, or if you're dealing with a lot of off-zone high damage attacks. I know we're running a playset of an attack that can commit a character in the main board. If you need some additional support, we also got 2 copies of Stop in the sideboard. Nice and simple, after you block with this, you just commit your rival's character. The bottom hands is quite irrelevant. You should get used to working out what your momentum is, so you don't need to use these sort of effects. I know we're running a few reversals, but other players might be as well. We've got 2 copies of Invincible Iron Body in the side. For the simple enhance remove, until the end of your combat phase your attacks gain safe, and +1 damage. This can really catch reversal decks out, especially if you open with your first attack and then use Spinner's Enhance to drop this into play, then remove it. Odds are if your rival's a reversal dedicated deck, they've probably got 4 cards in hand, 2 of which they wanted to block with and 2 of which they wanted to hit you with. It can definitely throw a wrench in their game plan. The response flip is okay. It's similar to Resistance, except it's not on a spam, so I'm not as excited about it. And lastly we have Edge of Death. It can't be sealed or frozen, and we can commit it if we're rivals at Desperation to target commit one of their foundations. But mostly it's here for this bottom enhance. If your rival's attack is threatening 8 damage or more, we can reduce the damage to 2. It just gives it an extra line of defense against high damage decks. If you enjoyed the content, maybe drop us a like, let us know in the comments what character we should have a look at next. I'm quite enjoying these retro deck techs. It's nice trying to mix the old with the new.